From the beginning, the story of Jacob stands out as one of the most intriguing in the saga of the patriarchs of Israel. Son of Isaac and grandson of Abraham, Jacob was born into unique circumstances. In Genesis 25:26, we read, "Afterward came his brother, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel. Therefore his name was called Jacob." His name, which means he who takes hold of the heel, or supplanter, already gives us a clue as to the character and destiny he would carry. Jacob was not just a character. He was someone destined to shape the future of a great nation. His story begins with a birth that, even within his mother's womb, already foreshadowed the rivalry with his twin brother Esau. But what did the future hold for him? And how would God use an ordinary man with flaws and imperfections to fulfill his divine plans? That is the journey we begin to explore now. Jacob and his brother Esau were not just the fruit of their parents, Isaac and Rebekah's desire for children, but they were the fulfillment of a divine promise. For many years, Rebekah struggled with the pain of barrenness until God finally answered her prayers. Genesis 25:21 says, "And Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife, because she was barren, and the Lord heard his prayer, and Rebekah his wife conceived." But this was no ordinary birth. From the womb, God had already revealed to Rebekah that her children would have different destinies. In Genesis 25:23, God declares, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples will be separated from your body. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." Thus, even before he came into the world, Jacob already bore the mark of a promise that would forever change the history of his people. This divine prophecy established the path that Jacob would follow, a path full of challenges, deceptions, and finally, redemption. But despite everything, God's plan was in action, showing that his will prevails, even in the most unlikely circumstances. Jacob's story begins to unfold with an event that would forever change the destiny of him and his brother Esau. One ordinary day after a long hunting trip, Esau returned home exhausted and hungry. Jacob, ever shrewd, saw an opportunity there. In Genesis 25:29-31, we read, "Jacob was preparing stew when Esau came in from the field, exhausted and hungry. 'I am almost dying of hunger,' he said. Then Jacob said, 'First, sell me your birthright.' Esau, without considering the spiritual and cultural value of what he was doing, traded his birthright for a simple bowl of lentils. This impulsive act revealed the character of both brothers, Esau despising what was sacred, and Jacob taking advantage of the other's weakness. The Bible emphasizes in Genesis 25:34, Esau despised his birthright. At that moment, destiny began to take shape. Jacob, the supplanter, now legally possessed what was considered the most important blessing for his descendants. This symbolic exchange shows us how thoughtless decisions can have profound and lasting consequences. But for Jacob, this was only the first of many steps on his journey toward God's complete blessing. After the purchase of the birthright, the plan of Jacob and his mother, Rebekah, took an even riskier turn. Isaac, now old and blind, knew that his time to leave was near, and he wanted to bless his firstborn Esau. But Rebekah, remembering God's promise, devised a plan to ensure that Jacob would receive the blessing reserved for the firstborn. In Genesis 27:6-8 we read, "And Rebekah said to Jacob her son, 'I heard your father say to Esau your brother, bring me some venison and prepare me savory food, that I may eat and bless you before the Lord before my death. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice in what I command you.' Rebekah instructed Jacob to deceive his father by dressing himself in Esau's clothes and covering himself with animal skins to imitate his brother's rough skin. With a heavy heart and a troubled conscience, Jacob followed through on the plan. He approached his father, bringing the stew and pretending to be Esau. In Genesis 27:22, Isaac expresses his doubt. The voice is Jacob's, but the hands are Esau's. However, when Isaac touched Jacob's hairy hands, he was convinced and thus gave him the blessing, a blessing that would be irrevocable. This deception had serious consequences. Esau, upon discovering what had happened, became enraged and planned to kill Jacob, forcing him to flee to his relatives in Aram. Jacob's act of deception, while securing the blessing, also alienated him from his family and set him on a path of personal challenges and struggles. However, even in this complicated scenario, God continued to guide Jacob's steps, preparing him for the greater purpose that was yet to come. Jacob's flight to Aram marked the beginning of a new phase in his life, filled with love, sacrifice, and, again, deceit. Upon arriving at his uncle Laban's house, Jacob met Rachel and immediately fell in love with her. In Genesis 29:18 it is written, "And Jacob loved Rachel and said, I will serve thee 7 years for her sake, for Rachel thy younger daughter." Jacob's love for Rachel was so intense that the 7 years of labor seemed like just a few days to him. However, Jacob's story took an unexpected turn when, on his wedding night, Laban tricked him into giving him Rachel's older sister Leah. Discovering the deception the next morning, Jacob confronted Laban, who justified his actions by saying that it was the custom in the region to marry the oldest daughter first. Despite his disappointment, Jacob agreed to work another 7 years to marry Rachel, the woman he truly loved. In Genesis 29:27-28, we read, "Finish the week of this one, and we will give you the other one also in exchange for the service. You will serve with me another 7 years." So Jacob worked for Rachel for another 7 years, demonstrating his perseverance and dedication. Jacob's marriage to Leah and Rachel brought complexities to his family life. He had 12 sons, including Joseph and Benjamin by Rachel, and many more by Leah and her concubines. This family would become the foundation of the 12 tribes of Israel. Although Jacob's story is marked by deception and challenges, it also shows the power of love and perseverance, and reveals that God, even in the midst of human difficulties and failures, was fulfilling his plan to form a great nation from Jacob. After many years of serving Laban, Jacob felt it was time to return to his ancestral land of Canaan. But the road back would not be easy. He knew that upon arrival, he would have to face his brother Esau, whom he had deceived years before. A fear and anxiety gripped Jacob as he prepared for this fateful encounter. In Genesis 32:7-8, we read, "Then Jacob was filled with great fear and distress, and he divided the people who were with him into 2 groups, saying, If Esau comes to the one group and strikes it, the other group will escape." But before he met Esau, Jacob had an even more significant encounter. By the brook Jabbok, he wrestled with a mysterious man all night. This man, believed by many to be a divine manifestation, touched Jacob's thigh, dislocating it. But Jacob did not give up. In Genesis 32:26, the man said, "Let me go, for the day has broken." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." This event marked a profound transformation in Jacob. He was given a new name, Israel, which means one who strives with God. The blessing he received at that moment symbolized a change in his life, a new beginning, which prepared him for the reunion with his brother. The next day, Jacob finally met Esau. Fearing the worst, he approached his brother with humility and fear. But surprisingly, Esau ran to meet Jacob, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. In Genesis 33:4 it is written, "Then Esau ran to meet him and threw his arms around him, and he fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept." This reunion was not only a reconciliation between 2 brothers, but also a moment of healing and restoration. Jacob, who had once lived in fear and guilt, now experienced the power of forgiveness and reconciliation, showing that even after years of separation and conflict, love can prevail. Jacob's journey toward the Promised Land was marked by many challenges, but also by moments of growth and transformation. Even after reconciling with Esau, Jacob's life continued to be filled with trials. One of the most painful was the death of his beloved wife Rachel, who died while giving birth to their youngest son, Benjamin. Genesis 35:19 records, "So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath," that is, Bethlehem. This moment of profound loss scarred Jacob, but he continued on his journey, knowing that his family's legacy must continue. In addition, Jacob faced the tragic incident involving his daughter Dinah, who was dishonored by Shechem, the son of Hamor the Hivite. This event led his sons Simeon and Levi to take drastic action, avenging their sister's honor, but also bringing consequences for the entire family. In Genesis 34:25 we read, "On the 3rd day, when they were in pain, 2 of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, each took his sword and crept into the city and killed every male." Despite all these challenges, Jacob maintained his faith in God and continued to lead his family. However, the betrayal of his eldest son Reuben brought Jacob further grief when he learned that Reuben had dishonored his father by sleeping with Jacob's concubine, Bilhah. In Genesis 35:22, The Bible records, while Israel was living in that land, Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Israel heard about it. These events showed that even as the patriarch of a great nation, Jacob was not exempt from the pains and hardships of life. Finally, after years of trials and blessings, Jacob was reunited with his beloved son Joseph in Egypt, where he was welcomed and honored. Jacob lived his final years surrounded by his family, but also with the wisdom of one who had faced many adversities. In Genesis 47:28, we read, "And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years, and the days of Jacob, the years of his life, were 147 years. Before he died, Jacob blessed Joseph's sons and his own sons, establishing the future of the 12 tribes of Israel. He was buried in Canaan, in the cave of Machpelah, along with his ancestors, Abraham and Isaac, thus ending a life marked by faith, suffering, and divine promise. Jacob, also known as Israel, left a legacy that echoes through the generations. His life was marked by ups and downs, but through it all, God fulfilled his promises. Jacob not only became the father of the 12 tribes of Israel, but he is also remembered as one of the most important patriarchs of faith. In Hebrews 11:21, he is mentioned in the Hall of Heroes of Faith. By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph and worshipped, leaning on the top of his staff. Jacob is mentioned in several genealogies and biblical passages, including the Gospels of Matthew and Luke, where his lineage directly connects the history of the people of Israel to the coming of the Messiah, Jesus Christ. His life, full of challenges and encounters with God, reminds us that even in the midst of our failures and struggles, God is faithful to fulfill his promises. Jacob's legacy is not limited to ancient history. He continues to be an inspiring figure for all who seek to understand the power of perseverance and faith in the face of adversity. His life invites us to reflect on our own spiritual journey and to trust in God, even when the path seems difficult. If this story of Jacob touched your heart and brought new insights into the Bible, be sure to leave a comment below. We want to know how the life of this great patriarch impacted your faith. And if you are not yet subscribed to our channel, don't miss the opportunity to join our community. Subscribe now and activate the bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming inspiring Bible stories. Until the next video.